So the tumbling compounds are used with all these different medias. Liquid compounds are often used with the ceramics and the plastic medias and things like that, the wet tumbling medias. All the stuff that we sell are concentrated. The liquid compounds are used to provide lubricity in the process, so it helps to kind of aid in the interaction between the media and the parts. They help to slowly and evenly wear down the media. So Todd was talking about the bonding agent in these medias. So, inside this media, this green part is the plastic bonding agent. There are abrasives built or bonded into this. And the compound helps to slowly break down that bonding agent, release that abrasive, and that abrasive kind of tumbles around with the media and the parts and acts kind of like as a sanding agent as it tumbles around in there. They also are used, the liquid compounds are also used to provide cleanliness, detergency, and sometimes also to control pH. Certain metals are sensitive to certain pH, alkalinity, or acidity environments. Liquids are going to be chosen based on the types of materials being used. So we were talking a minute ago about acid compounds. Lightly acidic compounds are good for some of these metals like aluminum, certain alloys of aluminum, brass, copper, things like that. Alkaline compounds are typically going to be used with ferrous-type metals, although they can also be used with lots of other types of metals as well. Yeah, the powder compounds are very similar to the liquids, but are oftentimes used more in barrel systems. With liquids, this is a small version, but you typically would have like a recirculating system where you would make a solution of the compound in here, and you would pump up from here, cycle into here, and then back in.
So the recirculating system, I was just gonna, Stuart, what were you guys using? You had the same.
Exact same thing, yeah, exact same setup.
Exactly.
Yeah, there'll be a suspended pump in there. And it's suspended, so it's not sitting on the bottom, sucking up the
It just kind of hangs off the edge.
pulls off the
Hangs off the edge.
cleaner
of the bucket.
water without the.
So what happens is that as these medias break down, that residue gets flushed into the recirculating system and it sinks, right? And so you don't want to necessarily recirculate the residue. You get a little bit, but you want it to sink down to the bottom so that you've got as clean a solution as possible. You do want to change that solution regularly though to keep the process clean and to keep your parts clean from batch to batch.
Higher end, there people will have just metering devices with constant flow. If they're doing any of these continuous flow ones, they have to continually put it in. So they'll have a couple 55-gallon drums, a metering device, and it's just constantly flowing.
They won't.
So are those specially formulated to do that, to where they break down and you know exactly how the compounds work, so that way you do?
Well, the media is designed to break down. The compound enhances that.
Okay.
If you don't use a compound, a tumbling compound, and just use water, which some people do, what will happen is the compound helps to keep the media pores open so that they can keep breaking down. If you just use water, the media will have a tendency to glaze over on itself and then it won't break down. So if you go into a shop, and you didn't have this problem, but if you go into a shop and you look at the media and it's all shiny and bright, time to replace the media because it's not breaking down. And if it doesn't break down, it doesn't give you the deburring that you're looking for. The powder compounds are not typically used in vibratory machines because it's much more difficult to dilute a powder. You have to mix it, get the liquids you just dump in and give it a quick swish and you're good to go. Powders work great in barrel tumblers because you just put the water in there, throw a little powder in there, whatever the recipe, the cookbook calls for, excuse me. And you just turn the machine on and it dilutes as the process goes.
Actually, interesting about the powder I was telling you yesterday that we were one of the first that did it. So we have something called Cramco 750, Cramco 910, 930, whatever. They became industry terms, right? So 910 is a burnishing compound.
Like Kleenex or Band-Aid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We actually are an exporter to China and Asia of those compounds because they can't match them. They try all the time. So we'll do container loads to them, and they use it in jewelry finishing over there. So getting some back.
Yeah.
The other benefit of powders is that you can build abrasives into the powders. So if you need a more aggressive process in a barrel tumbler to get like a really heavy deburr, there are powder compounds that might have different kinds of abrasives built into them to enhance, not the abrasive coming off the media. With a vibratory machine, if you put an abrasive in there and have a recirculating system, it just gets flushed right out. So you wouldn't be able to use that recirculating system. You have to block the drain, which is doable, and people do that, but it works better in a barrel tumbler. Creams are almost exclusively used with hardwood media. And the way these work, and they come in various versions, anywhere from a cutting cream up to a high gloss polishing cream, is you take the pegs, you add a little bit of cream to the pegs, it coats the pegs a little bit, creates like little dots of cream on the pegs, and then when you put the parts in there, that the pegs or the hardwood media act kind of as like little tiny sanding blocks, and applies that abrasive. And basically, the different creams are like different levels of sandpaper, right? So they go from coarse sandpaper to extra fine sandpaper kind of a thing. Oftentimes mostly used with plastic parts, but can also be used with metal parts as well. And these are the creams here. With the treated tumbling medias, those ones there was I think a red and a green one we brought in somewhere. Oh, they're around here somewhere. The powders. There are recharge additives. So these are based on walnut shell, and eventually they can start to not be as effective. And we have powders that you can add to those things to kind of recharge them and allow the media to last longer. And fortunately, Kramer's not here. Allow the media to, you don't have to buy the media so often. So, but that's basically what they are. So that process is typically done in barrel tumblers, and it uses hardwood.
Those two things
typically
together,
uses hardwood
that's all it
media.
takes.
And what you would do is you would put your parts into a load with like a hardwood peg or a cube. And the reason you would add the cubes really are just to allow for a softer. Remember that cascading action we were talking about? If you were to put a bunch of blocks like this into a barrel tumbler, they're going to be banging into each other and damage each other. But if you can fill that space with smaller media, you get this nice cascading action. And if you put a white aluminum oxide in there, or a black silicon carbide, depending on the color of your wood, that will sand the part down and give you beautiful soft edges, remove any kind of saw marks and things like that. The one thing you gotta be careful about is that you don't use too abrasive a process if you have very like an intricate design, because it will wear down some of that design.
Yeah,
So
right.
just got to be careful about that.
Yeah, maybe that's.
So the drumsticks is a unique process
Yeah.
where you would use a barrel like this one that's just about the length of the drumstick, just a little bit wider than the drumstick, and you fill the barrel about 60 or 70% full with the drumsticks. And then you can put your coating in there, because the drumsticks will only tumble in this direction. They won't be tumbling in 3 dimensions like you would normally get. And that allows you to put the coating onto the drumsticks. The challenge with applying a coating in a barrel tumbler, like say paint for example, is that how do you dry it, right? You don't get even coating on the part.
We do, however, and have sold to cane, like wood cane manufacturers, and they use bigger barrel tumblers to actually coat with whatever. They'll soak the rags, put the rags in, and then just tumble, and then they come out perfect.
Clear coated or whatever.
Yeah.